those of you that are already here, want to type in the chat who you are, where you are. We'd love to get to know you further. You are here for international recruitment success. Yeah.
So,
So, hi, Amin. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Marie. Hi, Ma.
so, thanks for joining us today. I'm Kirsten. I've been working internationally since 1996. I nearly said eight. It was 1996. I'm from Scotland, but I grew up internationally, so I attended international schools as a child and young adult. I've worked in Latin America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. I've been respectively a teacher, a coach, a curriculum coordinator, head of primary, and now I work with a whole range of schools and a lot of teachers, both helping them develop professionally and supporting teachers moving internationally as well. And with me is Kate.
Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you. Like Kirsten, I started in the 90s. I went overseas. I started teaching in 1995, but I went overseas in 1999, and I've been a teacher in the US, China, Tanzania, Thailand, and Cambodia. And like Kirsten, I've done everything from being a teacher to being a teacher leader to my most recent position was head of school. And now I do IB workshops, compass workshops, trust-based observation workshops, and my own workshops for schools, as well as doing school consultancies called Vision to Impact. But in the meantime, between big projects like Kirsten, I do coaching. So we can help you with your application review. We can coach you in your career move and tailoring your things. So back to you, Kristen.
No worries. So this session is for you just to help you think through some of the moves you might need to make, some of the things you might need to consider, and how to put together your paperwork in an efficient and effective way. So we're just going to start with like a little bit of overview that some of you may or may not be aware of.
And so first thing is to know your hiring season. And so if you're already overseas, maybe you're fully aware, but for the Northern Hemisphere, everything kicks off from October to March. School heads, I can speak as a previous one, we often are still hiring April to July. There can be last minute hires, but you don't want that to be your plan A. However, if you're looking in the Southern Hemisphere, you might want to start your applications at a different time point in the year, and then you want to be ready to kick off in May.
Okay, so some schools, we call them calendar B schools, they will run January to November. It's also good to be aware that if you're targeting Europe, that often European schools will hire later because the European labour laws do not allow for schools to ask for early resignations as they do in many parts of the world. So here's your timeline. Kate's just going to talk you through. We're now in September, so we're already kind of in the timeline.
Yeah. So each year, and we maybe type in the chat what stage you're in. Are you already applying? And Kirsten, did you want to do your polls or do those come later?
Later.
Later. So start preparing your paperwork immediately. You will always want to update your resume, and you will want to, I always advise clients that your resume should match your LinkedIn and your LinkedIn should match your resume. So they should, say the same things or all your social media. You're going to want to pick a platform, which, like ISS, Scroll, Test. Where are you looking for jobs? And those have different price points. So you can choose to one or more. Many people are on more than one platform. Um, they are going to require you most likely to get references. So you're going to want to prepare people who you're going to ask to fill those out. And it can be a lot. So that's one hindering factor when people, if you want to join like through three sites, you will have to ask for references, and that means that the same person may have to fill out three. Then you're going to want to make a targeted list of schools. That's what I've always done. And what's your top priorities and connect with people from those schools. Did you want to say something, Kirsten?
No.
Nope. Okay. I heard feedback. Then October, so starting next month, you want to be preparing for your interviews, and you may interview with friends, you may interview with a coach, but practice because we all are rusty the first time that we go. So you wouldn't want to make your top school gives you an interview. You won't want that to be your first interview that you do. And there are some tips and tricks for interviewing. Check websites for openings because you may not see them. If you don't see it on Scroll, one job that I had wanted was only on LinkedIn. It wasn't on other websites. So you have to know where the specific schools you want post and decide on whether to attend a job fair. And then February to April, if you're not getting jobs, seek feedback, look into your plan B, and do know that teachers are still hired after this. And I'm Brandon, I'm in Cambodia. Yeah, Siem Reap Soil. Anything you want to add there, Kristen? Oh, you're on mute.
I put myself on mute because of the feedback. I just wanted to give people the chance to let us know where they're looking. So we've prepared a poll, and so the poll should come up on your screen shortly. Just check any box. Oh, hang on, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Okay. Right. Well, it worked earlier when I checked it. Hang on.
I'll
Yeah.
just keep
No, no, no,
talking,
no.
Kristen.
I think it's because we did it earlier. So there we go. So it should come up now. So just check any boxes on your screen, any of these places that you're looking. It's just interesting to see. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to talk through some of these places in case some of the people on the call don't know them. So obviously Kate's managed a school website. And if you are targeting specific schools, it's really important to target their websites. However, I found a sneaky trick. You can go to ChatGPT and you can ask it, are there open positions in this field on this
Ooh.
school website? I just tested that for a friend who's looking for a humanities position, and we tested it for several schools in Singapore, and all the ones that it came up with open positions on were correct. The positions were there. So that's maybe a fast way to, do a weekly check with your chat, with your list of schools and your position, and then ask the bot to go through those school websites for you. Search Associates, I think a lot of people know, one of the most famous organizations. Some people like it, some people don't like it because they have to pay. Some people think it's great because of their database. They do have a wide reach, and a lot of schools do use them. Some Search Associates are better than others at giving you assistance with your profile. So one piece of advice is, if you are going to invest in Search Associates, invest in having a strong profile, get a friend or get a coach to help you with setting up a really strong profile. It makes a huge difference. I've rewritten people's profiles with them, and they've gone from 0 to 50 in weeks. It's quite incredible. Then you have sort of specific consultancies like Teach International. They really focus on British schools. Mark Webber is the best for Latin America. He knows all the schools there. And I like Mark a lot. He's a former colleague and good friend, and he won't sell anybody down the river. TES, a lot of people use TES, and I highly recommend it because it's not just British schools, IB schools, all sorts of schools are on there, and it has a vast range of schools. And if a school is prepared to invest in sending out an advert, they're going to be prepared to invest in you. So it's a good sign. Then we have a range of other services. I really recommend Global Recruitment Collaborative if you're not, or sorry, Global Recruitment Consortium if you're not on them, because they're free. They tend to have good quality schools, and there's no nonsense about them. They're very inclusive. It's no one person or one nationality has a priority. It's very clear that they're good schools looking for good educators. So you've got a range of places there. So feel free to ask us more towards the end about placements and where to put your pieces. There's a few smaller agencies that really deal much more in placement. So if you're in to leadership, for example, Connie Sando, Edvetkus, are good places to contact if you're a leader and you're looking for a specific role in a specific type of school, because as you go up the ladder, your choices actually get smaller. So it actually helps to have a consultant who's working with schools to try and help match you. So let's see what people have done and answered on our poll. So mainly that's coming up with school websites and search associates. So perhaps it might be interesting for you, some of you, to investigate some of those other sources as well. And we do have on the International School Jobs and Recruitment Chat site, there is a frequently asked questions document, and that does have a little bit of background on some of these organizations for you. Okay. So, Kate, do you want to just go over a little bit more from the school perspective very briefly? You're muted.
Sorry, my son called briefly. It interrupted the call. Um, so yeah, so we use agency websites. The school I was most recently at, we used Teacher Horizons and we used Scroll. That tells you that, well, it could tell you that we were a tier 2 school, not necessarily a tier 1 school that was able to afford search associates and the prices. We did not use recruiters, but I found recruiters helpful in talking to us about people. When we used Teacher Horizons, it was kind of like a recruitment service, and they placed people with us. We also posted on our website, and schools often go to job fairs. And that's, I think it's highly important to see the people that you work with and work for and be a part of a job fair at least once in your life. Ask for colleague recommendations. You know, tell people you're looking, announce that you're looking on LinkedIn if you've told your school, and then people can say, hey, we're looking for a vice principal at our school. Are you available? With LinkedIn, you want to make connections with people at that school when you're investigating in a school. Many times, you know, teachers are so helpful. Say, hey, I'm interested in this position at your school. Would you be open to a 15-minute chat about what it's like to teach there?
Yeah.
And usually, as a head, we don't usually respond to cold emails, especially cold emails that are addressed to Dear School Leader that are generic. It doesn't mean that you won't get an answer, but it is highly unlikely that a leader has time in their day to be doing emails when they're also on platforms. Managing platforms is a lot, and a lot of school leaders are now using and hiring HR to do hiring because it is a very full-time job.
I
Any
think
questions about where schools are looking?
I think it's right just to add a little bit to that. I think a lot of people do ask, should I send an email? If the position is available, then apply. If the position is not available, on-spec emails don't help anybody. As a school leader, your inbox is full.
Yeah.
You just simply can't get to that person who's might there be a something, okay? But to follow up on the LinkedIn and where schools might be looking everywhere, my last two jobs came through social media. I was picked up for asked to apply because of what I post on social media. My two of my jobs before that came through going to professional development events and meeting somebody from a school and actually being in professional development with them and sharing your ideas and philosophies. And they're like, oh, you're looking for a job? Well, yeah, I am actually. Okay, would you consider applying to us? And it doesn't mean you get the job, it just means you get the interview. So, as much as you can be visible and helpful, it doesn't mean you have to be a self-promoter and you have to be flagging everything you do. I mainly comment on people's posts. I very rarely post anything with my own. I often share other people's posts. So, there's different ways that you can be seen to be visible and seen to be a proactive and productive educator. So now I just want to delve in a little bit into you, okay? And it's really important to know yourself, know who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, and also to, which Kate will delve into a little bit later, to know the kind of schools that might be a good fit for you. Last year, we had people telling us, I wrote 120 applications, I wrote 150 applications. We also had schools telling us that they received 400 applications for a head of secondary job and 133 applications for one early years job. Okay. So you have to really think about targeting, which is something we'll delve into later. But the most important parts, which I'm going to dive into now, which I'm sure is what you're all waiting for, is the preparation of your application paperwork. And these are the three main pieces. Some people don't need this piece because they don't put up on recruiters' websites, but you do definitely need the other two. So, all right, so you need to know these things about yourself. And you need to be very clear about them, okay? And these are things that may or may not affect your ability to get into certain countries, to get into certain schools, okay? Your initial training will make a difference. I couldn't get a visa to work in Turkey because I have a BSc plus a PGCE, and you need a 4-year education degree to be a primary school teacher in Turkey, okay? A lot of people suffer from other limitations than that. It is tougher, I'm not going to lie to you, it is tougher if you come from a country like India or Uganda or Ghana or Philippines. It is tougher because the qualifications are not always recognized. And that is difficult. Sometimes that is prejudice, but sometimes that is government regulation. Because a government can say, well, we're the government of Thailand. If you're going to hire somebody from Indonesia, why can't you hire somebody from Thailand? Whereas if a school is saying, no, we need somebody who has a British training and we need somebody who has an experience of the English national curriculum, or we need somebody who has IB trained or is experienced in child-led learning or whatever it is, that's a route to get the government to actually authorize the work permit. So I'm not saying, believe you me, I support a lot of different people, and I'm not saying that because you come from Indonesia or Uganda that you shouldn't become an international school teacher, because I know plenty of people who have. Okay, they have. It's just that you need to know like where it's possible for you to sort of put your efforts, if you like. So all of these things you need to know about yourself, and even coming down to personal pieces. You know, what's your character? I loved it in the Sudan. I preferred the Sudan to the British Virgin Islands, but that's not everybody, right? Kate, where's been your favorite place that you've worked?
Oh, I think it would have to be Chiang Mai. It was just incredibly special. So, but it was, the time in my life, and I gave birth to my son there. And so, um, and the school was in nature, and yeah. But when I was young and single, I loved working in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. So it depends
Africa,
on your,
yeah, Africa's
what's,
amazing. I did love Africa
yeah.
too. 7 years in Uganda. So the one thing we're going to ask you to think about is your priorities, okay? So what is it you want most from your next move? Because people will say, they'll put up lists, they'll say, oh, I want to get a great salary and I want to work in a top school and I want to have a nice lifestyle and I want to get lots of professional development, but I also want to live in this particular location and get this particular climate. And realistically, unfortunately, that's not possible. So now we're going to put up a different kind of poll where you're going to be asked to identify your priorities. And this is not for me, this is for you. Okay. So I'm going to pop that up right now, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. So you should be able to see where you can select an area, select a field, and then give it a priority rating on the screen in front of you. And even if you don't do this now, you might want to take a screenshot and think about it later.
And can you guys see the poll okay? Can you enter? It should pop right up on your screen.
Yeah, I think they're just having a think about. We can't see who answers what, so you don't need to worry about that. All we'll get, which is what you'll see as well, are just some numbers.
Yep, now they're coming in.
It's starting to look interesting now. And you see, people do have different priorities. When I first started, all I wanted to do was see the world and contribute something. And then I got a little bit older and more experienced, and I wanted to work with one particular program. And then I got even a little bit more older, and I realized that I needed to earn some money. So my priorities changed. And I never got married and had kids, but when you have a family, then one of the highest priorities usually becomes is where are my children going to go to school?
Yeah.
So, there are certain schools you don't want to be at because of the mix or the program or other things that your child's needs aren't met. It's tough sometimes for children who have for parents who have special needs children, for example, because they need to get into a school that has that kind of provisioning. So it's a little bit different. So I see that two people have participated. So I'm guessing that the others are shy. And I'm just going to end the poll right now because it's not for us, it's for you. But I do really recommend that you do that work. It's one of the most important things that you will do that will actually help you clarify where you're targeting and then really nut in onto the tailoring of what you can offer them. Okay, so we need to think also about what you're bringing. And a lot of people I see promote up on our group and they're like, I want this, this, and this. And I always respond and say, could you go back and think about what you're offering? Because you're usually hired because of what you're offering rather than what you want. Okay. And we have to bear in mind that it is a marketplace. So we have to, nobody's asked, somebody said to me, Kirsten, I can't sell myself. And I said, well, then you shouldn't be in this field because you're going to have to sell yourself. Whether you go to a job fair, whether you're posting stuff online, whether you're just applying into schools, whether you're interviewing, you're selling yourself. You have to be. Okay. So we touched on some of the possible challenges. As much as we'd like it to be free and easy, it's not. I'm in the upper ages of 50 right now, and there's a lot of places that I can't go and work or will become increasingly closed off to me. All right. We can't change it. People get frustrated. They're like, I'm able, I'm capable, I'm at the top of my game. Doesn't matter. If the government of Qatar or the government of China says no, that's it. And some of these other areas that governments do regulate for that I've mentioned before. It can be difficult for schools to get work permits, for example. So the inequity that we see isn't necessarily an inequity that's coming from the school. It is sometimes, but it isn't always. I was working with a school in Bahrain and they desperately wanted to hire an Azerbaijani person for head of maths. They absolutely desperately wanted to head, but he couldn't come in because even though he had all of the experience, he was an IB diploma leader, he was all sorts of things. He just had everything they wanted. He didn't have a degree in maths, so his qualification was wrong. So it's not always what we think it is, that sort of thing. So then it can also be the type of school, the type of curriculum. A lot of people want to go into IB schools, but they haven't done any research. We'll be doing a webinar later on about more about IB schools. But if you want to be an IB educator, get your research hat on because IB educators are proactive, curious, they do a lot of research, and it's actually your job to show the school that you're a match for them, not for them to say, yeah, come and learn the IB programs and we'll pay you to do that. Right? Okay, I got my first job in an IB school. Why? Because I was a pedagogical match. Because the pedagogy that I have is a strong match to what IB schools want. So these kind of things to really like be tuned into. Okay. And then unfortunately there are also market demands. Like it's way, way easier to get hired as a physics teacher than it is as an English teacher. Trying to get hired as a non-native English speaking English teacher in another country is probably one of the hardest asks. Okay. And people say, well, why? It should just be because I'm a good teacher and all that sort of thing. Again, it comes down to market demands. You can be the most excellent teacher, but if that head is fighting parents who want native English speakers, it's very tough on them. I've known two heads to be fired and one to be bullied out of a school by parent communities. So
Mhm.
it's not as easy as people think it is just to stand up to the parent community. The boards can turn around and fire you if the parents aren't happy. So I think we just need to see everything from a bigger picture, which is why my stance is always, how do we find the best places, the best fit for you to put your energies into applying? That there's no sense in getting angry and frustrated and hitting your head against a brick wall. If the school over here can't hire somebody, I had a brilliant NYP coordinator, absolutely fantastic for the role. School wouldn't take him because he had a wife and 2 kids. They said, we just can't afford it. We love him. We love everything about him, but we just can't afford it. So we have to just roll with the punches sometimes and do our best. But here's the piece I think that you've been waiting for. All right. So I'm going to roll through this, then I'm going to ask Kate if she wants to elaborate, and then we'll stop and see if you have any questions specifically about paperwork. The thing about a CV and a letter is that they serve two different roles. And the single biggest mistake that I see when I review people's applications is this. The letter repeats the CV. It turns the CV into a narrative. I have been here, I have done this, I have taught that. What a waste of paper. Everything you have on your CV doesn't need to be repeated on your letter because your letter is your showcase. So what do you need on your CV? You need to, first of all, be a brand, know who you are. If you just put up there, I don't know why people do this. They put their name really small and then they put their address and their telephone number and all sorts of other things. And I'm like, no, put your name and what kind of teacher you are. Big.
Yes.
Okay. Amin, I don't know what you teach, but I'm just going to say geography. Okay. So Amin Abu Bakr, experienced geography teacher. You know who you are. They can see who you are. Okay. It shows confidence, it shows self-knowledge, and it will keep them looking. I don't need to see your address at that point. Okay. Then a very, very short, no more than 3-line sentences of who you are as an educator, not your experience, not I've had 17 years experience and I have 6 masters. No, because I'm going to see that. But who are you? Okay. Who are you as an educator? Do you have proven experience in exam success? Are you highly engaging and student focused? Like, it doesn't matter. Summarize yourself there. Right at the top. I don't know why people put it at the bottom. Your credentials and your education.
Yes.
I don't want to read everything else and then find out you've got the wrong degree that I can't get you in the
Yeah.
country. How disappointing is that? So right at the top, honestly, I've gone to job fairs, I've had somebody put a pen through my qualifications. That's it. It saves them time, it saves you time. Okay. So, right. And then summary of your career, short bullet points. Right. And I really advise anybody who's got more than 8 years experience to do key or core skills and experience at the top where you synthesize. Synthesize as a skill. You don't want 15 bullet points of every little task you ever did underneath your. We don't care. We really don't. When we're hiring, we're like, we just want to look, can they do the job? And then we want to see those extras that they brought, they're interested in. Some people are interested in curriculum development. Some people are more interested in, I don't know, outdoor ed. So everybody usually has an interest area, but it's effects. It doesn't say it here. I need to update it, but it's effects. You need to focus on effects, successfully introduced a new English language teaching program. Great, right? Improved student spelling in grade 6. Doesn't matter, but it's the effects that people are looking for. That's what makes you stand out from the people who just list things like classroom management, parent communication. Hello, we should all be doing that. Okay, so really just think about what have I done in this particular role that's made me like a really super person to work with, or really what I've brought to change the school, improve learning, anything, and put those things there under short bullet points. All right.
Yeah. And Kristen, one of my rules of thumbs that I say to people is if you are like repeating what everyone expects, like planning for engaging lessons, like that's expected. That does not take up a bullet point on your CV.
Yeah. However,
And
skilled at integrating technology does, because that's interesting, right?
yeah,
Skilled at
and
integrating technology to up-level learning is a plus, but designing engaging lessons, yeah.
yeah, anything that is, I think, part of the core job, the core, like assessing students, like that's expected. So they should be the things like you were saying that stand out or that you can put numbers on because data makes you unique. So if you do say raised student map scores over 2 years by this percent or something, then that's makes you stand out from other people.
I had one diploma applicant and he used to put his like diploma scores No names, but just his diploma scores in his application. Got a lot of interest because of that. The data can
Yeah.
speak. We can't always do that because of the ages or what we're teaching. Extracurriculars, just a short summary. Like not every club you've ever taught, but like, football or soccer, as the Americans say. I used to always put drama, the arts. Um, but a lot of people are looking if you coach volleyball or basketball, that might get you an interview against somebody else
Yes,
with the same qualifications but doesn't have the coaching. So coaching is a hot tip, I'm promising you. A lot of the bigger schools as well are always looking for coaches. Your
I
professional,
was.
yeah,
And I'll tell you, it's important if you're gonna make a list, maybe don't list everything take out what you no longer want to do because people are looking at that list as I might want to hire this person because they can teach an after school Spanish club. And you have a market and your Spanish mom is moving on and there's not going to be that. But if you no longer really feel like you want to do it and you'd rather then just take it off.
yeah. I think be honest is kind of top as well.
Yes.
Professional development, a summary, and I would say recent and relevant. And references, which people argue about. Here's my thinking on references. Okay, if you put them on your CV, it shows that you've got nothing to hide. It shows that you've spoken to those referees and they're happy to speak for you, and they're happy to be contacted for you. If you don't put them on, it means that I have to ask you for them. I have to keep a note of the ones that you send back in a separate place where instead of just pulling out your CV and like going, okay, well, this is one of the people we decided to interview, right? I'm going to call one of
Yeah.
their referees. So what you're doing is you're saving that school leader one, maybe two, maybe three jobs, and that's going to be significant in how they actually feel about you. So what we've got to understand in these applications is that there's a lot of pressures on everybody now. So you make it easy for me, you make it easy for me to see your information. You show me that you know yourself, that what you're capable of. You show me that you can summarize, be succinct, and help me see why I should hire you and not puzzle it out over 3 pages of long lists. Then I'm going to be more likely to put you in my consider for interview pile. Any
Yeah.
questions about that? Okay, anything else you want to add to CVs?
I just really agree with your summary and that the credentials go at the top because there are governmental laws. And I know people they think they are the best person for the job, but sometimes there is that bigger picture that you just don't know. So I agree with you. Summary, no longer than 2 pages. We don't need a lot of bullet points. Another thing that I see is that people put the the location, like Germany, above the school. And like oftentimes what did you do?
Yeah.
Not where were you? Because that just gives it like you're more interested in location than like actually the job that you're applying for.
It's also, again, it's making my life easier. If you put, I always tell people, put the role first in bold,
Yes.
all underneath with the dates. Because when I'm
Yeah.
scanning, I scan down and I see, okay, they've done this role, this role, this role, this role. Then I might look at the type of schools. But if you're putting the school first, you're actually missing a trick with yourself because
Yeah.
it's harder for us to see the roles. So that was a good point to add. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
Now, with the letter, this is my personal baby because I really got a very strong opinion and I've got a lot of proven success of working with people on their letters. And I have to say, still, 90% of the letters that I read are still the same. They're boring, they're generic, and they're not putting the person on the page. Okay, so if you think that you're competing with possibly, well, at least 50 other people for one position, you want to make yourself stand out with a really great letter. Okay. So we have don'ts and we have do's. Okay. One of my biggest don'ts is don't make it generic. Tailor to schools. Is it more work? Yes. Is it worthwhile? Yes. Kate, what's your experience of tailoring?
Yeah, very important. Like those were the ones that said, I am interested in one of the schools I was at was the Giving Tree. I'm interested in the Giving Tree specifically because I know and tailored directly. And I've interviewed other heads of school, and when it says, "Oh, I'd really like to work in Japan," that's a But if you're specific about the school and how you match the school, that is eye-catching.
Yeah. So it's the difference as well by saying, I've got 7 years of experience teaching maths and I think it's good fit for your school, as opposed to saying, I've been through your website and I really value your mission on XYZ, and this is what I do in my teaching to bring that out. Or I see that you have a high priority on assessment-based practice. So here's how I actually use assessment to ascertain where students are at their point in learning need. So you make a specific connection, and then people are more likely to go, oh, they kind of sound a bit like us. So let's put them in the potential for interview pile. Okay. And what I see, actually, my biggest hatred is I strive to, I'm passionate about, I believe that children should. Why do I care about what you believe? I don't care how passionate you are. I care if you can deliver. Okay. So use words like my experience with, my capability to, yeah. Um, my students improve at, so that I can see. So the letter is all, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to show how you do things, not just what you do, but how you do it. So in the letter structure that I use, we discuss building community, developing relationships, the kind of practices that actually support students in moving forward. So peer feedback, assessment-based practice, they're assessing learning in their zone of proximal development, using technology to support whatever it is that you do, we find a way of putting it through. Okay. And I see this from English teachers all the time. I do, I did, I. And yet, most people want to be in a place where they are a valuable member of a community. Most people want to be in a place where they are part of a team. And sorry, could the person who's scribbling on the screen please stop? Uh, I will try to put the tools off, but I just don't think that that's necessary at this point in time. Thanks. Um, it's, if you want something, you have to show that you are that person. So if you want to be part of a team, how are you a team player? How do you support your team? How does your team work together in best interest of student learning? Yeah. Because I'm telling you, when I was hiring, if I saw I just ditched it. I don't want an I person in my team. Okay. So think about that and showcase, particularly if you're an English teacher, diverse sentence structures. Make it interesting. Make it a good, fun, interesting read for me. And then make sure that somebody else edits for you. I miss my own errors all the time. Everybody does. So don't be shy of asking for somebody to edit. Again, Kate, would you like to add anything? I was going to see if I can switch these tools off.
What I want to add here is that a cover letter gets 20 seconds. It does not get a lot of time. So you want to make sure it's short, sharp. You don't need to write pages upon pages and paragraphs upon paragraphs in 10 font. It should be short, sharp, and tailored. Those are my thoughts.
I think that's a good place to move forward. Okay. So
Yeah.
now, like once you've kind of set up and you know yourself and you know what to have to offer and you've got your paperwork in order, then we move into actually like what's your process and what are your steps through. And I'm going to hand over to Kate to lead this part.
Yeah. So when you're researching schools, I highly suggest creating a spreadsheet and putting the names of the schools in one column and things like the size of the school. That's going to matter. You might think that you can work in any size school, but maybe you're really somebody who likes a small team, because it is very different working in a school that has, 8 sections of grade 1. So the size of school matters for the experience that you'll have. So know yourself and what you want, and think about the size, what the curriculum is, Do you specifically want an IB school, or are you familiar with IGCSE, or are you familiar with ICA? What curriculum does the school have? You'll want to know if it's profit or nonprofit, and there are benefits and advantages at different types of schools. And then you'll want to know like what type of international school is it? Like, and one of those, my first international school here in Cambodia was it was international, one of the top tier international school, but it has a high local population. That's something to consider if you're bringing, like I have my kids here and they're in school, so that makes a certain experience for my kids. You might also be interested in the nationalities of the staff. I tend to like a really diverse staff. You know, if the staff is all one nationality, that gives a different feel than just know yourself and what you're looking for. And also governing body matters, which I'll talk about a bit later. You want to know, is the school authorized? Like for the International Baccalaureate, that's an authorization. Is the school accredited? Is it accredited by WASC, NEASC, CIS? What is the accrediting body? You'll want to know that one, because then there are certain rules that the school is held to. So you know it's of a certain standard. But also, when you sign up, you'll be doing the work on the authorization or accreditation depending on the year that you join the school. So that might be a question you ask if you get an interview. You know, where are you in your accreditation or authorizations cycle? Some schools are authorized by more than one body. One of my schools in Thailand was accredited by 5 bodies. I think 3 were international, 2 were Thai. Also, my strong recommendation is that you make sure that the school has safeguarding as a possibility, not as a possibility, it's very firm about safeguarding. You don't want to end up at certain schools, especially in this area of Southeast Asia. There are schools that call themselves international schools that are not, that hire unqualified teachers and do not do background checks. And that's not a school you want to be a part of. You want to know what kind of governance the school has, because it will determine the way the policies are enacted. Is it a board? Is it a school group? Is it private ownership? And then just, you know, think about what you want as an experience. With a private ownership, the school can be sold. So that might be a stability thing. But even school groups can sometimes sell a school. These are things that happen more with profit schools rather than nonprofit.
I think
Nonprofit.
just jump in there, Kate. You know,
Yeah.
having been in the field a long time, like yourself, we've seen a big shift because the sector is expanding, but the vast expansion in the sector is solely due to profit schools. And so you either have individually owned schools, or you have corporately owned schools, or you have what we call the McDonaldization of education. You have brand schools like Harrow.
Oh, yeah.
You have, Harrow, Dwight, these kind of schools, where basically the parent school, famous private schools in the UK, are selling their brand name. That's not that mostly that's all they're selling. They're selling a franchise. So one of the tips as well is looking at the type of school and who it's owned by, is actually looking at the leaders there. Like, so looking at the leadership history. So if you see the head of school, look at where the head of school's been before. Because a good head of school that's been working in really strong schools can come into a group like GEMS or Nord Anglia and take over a school. Like, there's a school in Abu Dhabi that's a Nord Anglia school and everybody's happy. There's another Nord Anglia school, I'm not going to say where it is, but everybody's unhappy. And the brands they do have, you can't sort of judge them as a brand, the school groups, but you do have to be aware of the difference between Dwight and Harrow, which are recognized British public school brands, and school groups, which are corporations, which are often owned by investment companies. Okay, so Cognita just sold 10 of its schools. to a different, well, actually Cognito is owned by an investment group. So whichever investment group it is, just sold 10 of its schools on because they weren't getting enough profit out of them. So there's a lot of things to look at when you're looking at a school. It doesn't mean that working for a profit school is always wrong. There are good profit making schools and there are bad non-profit schools, but it's a tough one.
Yeah. And then you want to know if you have children, how schools handle dependents. Some schools in Europe, you have to pay the tax. I haven't taught in Europe, so I haven't had this situation, but that can be a factor in the amount of money that you make.
And too,
You want
tuition is
say that,
taxed. Japan too, tuition is taxed.
and that may be Singapore as well. Yeah. So you want to know how the school handles certain things, medical care. That's coming up in the next slide. And then you'll just want to know that salary just alone doesn't tell the whole story because it needs to be weighed against the cost of living. Because, for example, some people have been able to save more money in Cambodia rather than Singapore, even though the salary in Singapore is off the charts high, the cost of living is also very high. Anything you want to add?
No, just on that final point, because it's an extremely good point as well, is like people often negate places like Germany and Switzerland because the salaries look low against the cost of living. But the institutional pension is amazing. So
Mm,
you can, I mean, I know people who, one of my former colleagues, she did 5 years only on Switzerland, and she ended up with £400 a month from 5 years, £400 a month on her pension. So there's a lot of factors to take into account. So it's very important.
yeah, absolutely. So possible red flags if the school is not authorized. Or has no authorization. That in and of itself doesn't, I know a school like that that is a great school. It doesn't itself mean it's bad, but it's something to look into further. If they have no safeguarding on their website, if they're only offering year contracts, that means that every year you're going to have to be deciding whether you stay or go. Um, if they only offer you local contract status, that's something, when you're changing schools in a city that you need to consider. And if the school is located in an unsafe, unstable region and has no evacuation plan or, you know, uh, evacuation in place. And if the school does not offer medical insurance, I think that's a red flag. Do you want to add any red flags, Kirsten?
Yeah, one that does often come up, which it can be mixed, is like if there's a large number of people leaving, and that
Yes.
there can be like mixed reasons for that. But generally speaking, if a school leader is ongoing and there's a large number of people leaving, that can be a red flag. Often when a new leader comes in, a large number of people leave as well because they don't like the change or they don't like the sometimes it's a raise in standards and all sorts of things. So there can be different reasons for it. But if you do see that there's a large number of jobs up on a small school, that's definitely something to question to find out more about. If you see a large number of jobs up on a large school, if you're working in a 6-stream school, or in China, there are 14-stream, 20-stream schools, and you see 60 jobs up, that's not actually a high percentage. I'm working right now at the school that brought in 4 new leaders and 29 new teachers this year, which would be about, in that school, 70% of the teaching staff. That was because the school went into an improvement plan. So the teachers that came were teachers that were excited to make the school better, and the teachers that left were people who were, well, now we're going to have to pull our finger out because we've been getting away with this for a long time. So, there's different reasons, but that's definitely something to look into if you see those numbers.
And then I think one that isn't mentioned on here, but just I'll say verbally, is if there are a lot of bad reviews on ISR, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad school, but it is something to ask. I was at a school that really went downhill within a very quick time. And people that came said, I saw the bad reviews, and I didn't think it would be this bad. And I said, why didn't you reach out? Like, touch base, like, ask people that are there. So I always recommend to connect with teachers that are in. And many times when you do interviews, the heads of school will say, would you like to talk to somebody that works here while you're making your decision?
That's a good signal. And that's kind of where our Facebook group exists. That's where it started, really, was for people to be able to ask questions and find out more. And yeah,
Yeah,
ISR, you kind of need to look at the dates and be aware that very few people, I think I'm one of the very few people actually goes on ISR to write positive things. One of
yeah,
my favorite heads nearly had a career trashed on ISR, um, with unfounded allegations. Really, one of the best people and has a massive fan base of every other school that she's ever worked in, except that one where they
yeah,
trashed her. So there's all sorts of pieces, but it is good, as Kate says, if there are a lot of negative reviews, then find out more wherever you can,
yeah,
for sure.
exactly. And then with a lot of my coaching clients, I find that helping them cope with rejection is something that I need to do. Please be open-minded. If you are looking for only a school in one city or one specific school or one specific country, you might need to open your mind to what other areas you could go in. Also, be open-minded that you don't know what is going on at that school and what that school needs. Sometimes they're looking for a specific type of team member. Maybe they have team members that are really strong um, curriculum writers, but they want to add somebody to the team that has a strong pastoral capability. So understand the process. Also, like when we were talking about nationalities, that can be interesting. I had a cap on Filipinos, not from the Cambodian government and not from the school, but from the Philippine government. And so we had to go through a process to get a candidate approved to join our school, and we had to pay to have that happen. So there's sometimes processes that and laws, and those laws in different countries change a lot. So please don't take rejection personally. Also, when people do not respond, like Kirsten said, sometimes there's 400 applications for one position. It's near impossible to send every person we looked at your CV and it didn't make it. Like that today, that's really hard to have the time to do that. And a lot of people they have a goal in mind. I'm going to get a job by January. I'm not going to have to go to the career fair, or I'm going to, you know, get picked up in November at the leadership fair. But just with every recruitment cycle and with every candidate, it takes the time that it will take. And I think if you just sit back and be open-minded and accept and allow that you're gonna find the right job in the end. Have another candidate found herself after not getting job after job after job, finding herself in a dream job that she couldn't have even imagined.
I think all these points are really important, and it's very true. A lot of people get very upset if they don't have a job by Christmas. All my favorite jobs have come in March and April. So there's
Yeah.
that. Well, apart from one that came in December, but that was a maternity leave starting in January because I didn't take a job in June because I didn't find one that I wanted to go to. So like it is what it is, and it's much harder if you have kids. But if you're single and independent and you can find a friend to stay with, if you can go and do substitute teaching, if you can, like, sometimes you just see that there's nothing for you at that time. And sometimes things pop up really late. Like when I worked at ISKL, I think every year, the year I went in, two of my colleagues came. They were hired in July. Excellent teachers, excellent school. And every year they were there because the school would be opening a class, or something would happen, or somebody couldn't come because their mum was sick or something. So it just because you don't have something by January doesn't mean there isn't something great out there. I think it's really important, as is the not taking it personally point. So here's kind of where we've gotten to. These things are really important, that we're prepared that we're proactive, that we're patient. And importantly, we have a plan B. And I always ask people this, what is your plan B if it doesn't go exactly as you dream it will? Because specifically if you have children, you do need to have a plan B. And for some people, that means going into a location they weren't as keen on because it was a better
Yeah.
school, because they're putting the children first. Or with some people, it means that they took a bit of a salary cut because they preferred the location. And with others like myself, sometimes it means that you're just going to go and take a pause for a bit and wait for something to come up. So, but always be thinking in your back of your mind, what's my plan B? I put up somebody in my house in Phuket. I met as, can't remember what he taught, but he was from Spain. And he was stuck because he'd lost his job in China and he hadn't have another one yet. So I just gave him my spare room and helped him with his applications until he found something and eventually went to Europe, to Egypt. So, and the open-minded thing I think is really important. I worked with a lot of people last year who thought they wanted to go somewhere and ended up going somewhere else. That's been me. I was going to Europe. I ended up in KL. I was going to Africa. I
Yeah.
ended up in Colombia.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't know what you might meet. So, Kate, a little bit about getting offers before we end.
Yeah. So once you get an offer, you want to really know certain things. And you will get you're most likely to get an offer if you stick with it. Just keep at the process. You're going to want to know the total net pay. So who pays the taxes? Are you paying the tax? Does the school pay the tax? What is the percent of taxes? Are you going to pay housing? Does the school pay housing? If the school pays for housing, do they offer you the school housing or do they give you housing? Is it taxed? Is it enough to actually live on? Is it enough? What is housing like in that city? Are you getting flights and relocation? Is that upon reimbursement or do you just get a cash benefit? Do you get insurance for just you? Do you get insurance for your family? Tuition? Do you have to pay the tax on the tuition? What is the career path that the school is going to offer you? So this is where you have to put together a whole picture of who you are, which we started with first, because you might make there might be a decision there about career path. Like it might not be that you take the highest paying job because another school, they're just starting out, but you're going to be able to move up into positions more readily and easily where the other school is more established.
It's
You're
also,
going to want,
sorry, just to jump in on that, like it is very personal. I was once offered a head of primary at the same time I was offered my first IB role as a teacher. So that was really difficult to figure out like which of those two things are more important to me. But then I decided like if I want to develop my career, I want to develop my career in IB, so I need to start here. And if I go over there and become head of primary in a British international school, I'm stuck there. So I did. I took a pay cut. I took a drop back in status because that was the route I wanted to go along.
yeah, I had an opportunity to go and be a principal and it was a non-IB school and I'm very IB but I wanted to get into leadership. And then before I started, they said, Kate, do you think you could bring in the IB? And so I made the jump and then the IB came with it. So sometimes it can work out. You're going to want to know the workload and the calendar. So different schools come with different levels of responsibility. And that is something that I would say if you get to a school and you're unhappy with the workload, you may have been able to prevent that by doing research first. Like, there are schools where you're basically expected to work on the weekends. So if work-life balance is important to you, you're going to want to investigate schools, or ask in the interview, what is the policy about after school and weekend emails? Are teachers expected to be at events on weekends and holidays? So you just things you want to know. And then safeguarding policies. I am a huge stickler for safeguarding, especially in Southeast Asia. Um, you want to know the screening process, especially if you have children. And then the savings projection is more important than necessarily the salary. And you can use Numbeo, or there are some other sites to calculate what it's like to live in different cities around the world. There's also digital nomads, and there's other sites where you can calculate cost of living in different cities.
Yeah, I use Expatistan. It gives you a
Oh,
yeah, it gives you
that
you can put in two cities and it compares it and it brings up all sorts of different things. Yeah.
oh, that's a good one. We'll have to add that.
So that's really it. You know, that's a little bit later on in the process, but maybe you just want to take a screenshot and those are the things you want to consider. Um, you know, Kate mentioned a spreadsheet, making a spreadsheet of schools. For me, when it came to decision making time, I would actually have like a spreadsheet of like what the offers were and like what was more important to me, like what points did I get, a point system, points for salary, points for this, points for that, points for the next thing. But then at the end of the day, most of the time it was an instinctive reaction based on who I'd talked to and who I wanted to work with the
Yeah.
most. That's often what really drives us. So that's it. We are at the end and we want to thank you for joining us. We just want to let you know that if you're interested, we're both capable and willing to give CV and application review. That's done asynchronously through a process where you get feedback and you're encouraged to upgrade your paperwork. We do also offer one-to-one coaching, which can be like one session for practicing interviews, or can be 5 sessions for going through all the process, or for rethinking your career, all that sort of thing. So there's a range of things that we can do there for you. Please feel free to write. I think we can take that capital off, but please feel free to write to teachersonthemoveinternationally@gmail.com if you want to find out about any more of this. You're not required to, and you're not required to take up any of our services. We're just very happy to share with people and encourage them. But if you are looking for an application review or anything like that, then that's the place to get a hold of us, and one of us will get back to you. And before we end there, like, any questions come up for you on this session that you felt weren't asked or you'd like to know more about? Silence. It's crickets out there. Okay, well, it just remains to say, sorry, no. That would be an insanity. I used to do it for donations, but I just got overwhelmed. I used to do it for donations to a project, but it's so for to redo to look at both sets of paperwork and redo and give advice, which takes about usually about 3 hours of back and forth, is 150, and then the coaching, it's 120 per hour, plus if it's 5 sessions then it's 500. So which you can ask around and find that's actually quite reasonable. Euro, but that's actually quite reasonable. I pay my coach 240 and it's worth it. For my life. But we're trying to make things like, this is neither of us, this is not our like main career. We just do this because we enjoy supporting people, so we try to make it approachable for educators. So that's it. But this
Yeah.
part, it's there's no requirement to go further. We're happy to share this just with anybody who wants to get a start or improve their process. So you can just
And
go.
we're doing it again on October 4th. So if you know other people who are job hunting, let them know.
Okay. I have to say, I
Here to
mean, I
help.
don't like to like sell myself at all, but most people, everybody finds it's worth the input. And I've had people tell me, I've been trying to get into this school for 5 years and I finally got an interview. I had people tell me I didn't have an interview for 11 months and then now I've got 7, because it just helps put your best foot forward. So that's
Yeah.
it. You're not looking for a job. No worries. Don't worry. Well, we'll see you online. And yeah, just let people know that we're doing this. We'll be popping up a few more posts, and just happy to encourage people and also potentially maybe to take a little bit of the workload off. That's it.
Yeah. And say hi on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's true. Do you want to put your
Yeah.
link in there, Kate?
Yeah, sure. That'll take a minute, but yeah. And what I wanted to just say is that, Kirsten and I just feel we have the ability to help people find the right fit, because when it comes down to everything, it's the right fit. That's what schools are looking for. That's what candidates are looking for, and we can help.
Yeah. So anyway, wishing you all the very best, and thanks for spending time with us here today, and happy to be connected. Take care.
Thank you.